Welcome back to the Real Estate 401k show as we get closer and closer to Christmas. I'm Mike Weinstein alongside Justin Frederick and Ryan Gertis down at the end at the child's section of
I don't know what child section has a bar in it, but, but
I'm glad I'm like right in the
You
middle.
didn't see how I was raised, my man.
okay.
All right. Well, never one of our funnest topics of conversation, but it's a conversation we need to have as the end of the year quickly approaches. We get into the January, and people now start reaching out to their accountants and their CPAs and filing for taxes. And so none of us here pretend to be an accountant or CPAs, but there are ways to posture your taxes if you're looking to transact in real estate in the following year and how you prepare those taxes. And so I want to kind of talk about some of those things that people need to consider. And I always recommend before you actually file your taxes, it's really not a bad idea to let you and your team have a look at them and make some recommendations if you want to qualify, if you want to increase the number. You don't like that, do you?
I mean, I'm not allowed to coach, but
I
can.
You're my first line of defense, dude.
You can give opinions.
I can look at things and give opinions for sure.
You know, so many business owners.
So if you have tax questions, call Justin.
I'll give you questions to ask your CPA. How's that?
Okay, there you go. But you know, one of the common scenarios that we have, because we work a lot with people who own their own businesses or are considered and file as independent contractors, receive 1099s, and it's the good and the bad. We have so much flexibility in what we can write off to minimize our tax liability at the end of any given year. But then the big surprise, when we go to qualify for a mortgage, our reported income sometimes, even though we've made a lot of money, but we've written off so much, the reported income now becomes a challenge. And oftentimes we've seen it so many times where people can't get qualified.
And I'm just going to start off with, you know, if you've gone to another lender and they've reviewed your tax returns, don't stop there. Look to other lenders. Let me review it. When you start having multiple businesses or even one business, it becomes a little bit more complicated than just looking at a simple W-2 or a pay stub. So this is something that you need to have years of experience to be able to review these tax returns, understand the tax returns, understand where things are placed and how that's accounted for, and what we can add back and what we can't add back. So even if you've gone, you get approved for an amount that you think is perfect, have another person look at it, get a second set of eyes on there, just make sure that it's equivalent, and you're good to go. Because this is one area where, I've made a name for myself with knowing how to look at tax returns and getting loans through.
And drinking beer.
And I'm really good at drinking beer. I'm El Professional.
I'm what you call a big deal.
Well, we're gonna get a little deeper into this and talk about some strategies, but I wanted to make sure that you had the number to text us to. If you want Justin and his teams to kind of take a look at your tax returns or have at least a preliminary conversation, all you got to do is text the word tax to 623-AZ-RECON. That's tax to 623-AZ-RECON.
Now, I don't know how much you want me to chime in on this because...
Is it going to get us in trouble with the SEC?
Well, so here's the deal. I'm not afraid to be on the IRS radar. I love this game. And every single time that I have a phone call from the IRS or a nasty gram or anything like that, I look at it as a learning experience. I'm going to be quite honest with you. And so most people find it very stressful and a lot of anxiety. I had probably, I'll go right out and say I've been audited before, and it was kind of interesting.
Well, it's because she was cute.
What?
The auditor?
Oh my God.
That's what made it interesting.
You're a real jackass. You know that?
Yes, I'm aware.
It's like, no, excuse me, we need to have another meeting about that.
Why is the auditor coming in with the HR department?
The IRS HR
God, dude,
department is here.
My wife watches this.
Sorry, Christine. You know, Mike never holds back.
No, this is 100% him. But I thought it was a great, great learning experience, and I learned more about it. And you always pay for your education, so we ended up having to get an attorney involved, and just kind of understanding how the negotiation works with them. It is completely different from any type of negotiating style I've been accustomed to. And it actually helped me with my negotiations in our business on the production side, and also on our investment side. So really being able to understand how those numbers are crunched, and I do love it every single time that we're doing anything. It's like, okay, just Justin and Cindy, you guys need to talk about what it is I'm going to do here, because if I need to go back and do an amended tax after the fact, then okay. But I think that so many people are afraid of that type of rub. And what I'm telling you right now is walk into it with confidence. And even if it costs you a little bit of money, you're going to learn something, and you're going to be a hell of a lot better off for it.
Well, and for the sake of our listeners, Ryan mentioned Cindy. Cindy is our accountant and the accountant for a lot of our listeners.
She's not just an accountant; she's a strategist. She has a team of accountants working for her.
But what I love what she says. She goes, a lot of people get terrified by the IRS tax code, or people hate the IRS tax code. And she explains that the IRS tax code is your best friend, because it's basically the letter personally written from the IRS to let you know how to minimize your taxes. She goes, you just got to go into it with that right mentality. And she's so good at, how do I take the tax code and help you keep more of your money?
Her phrase is always, it's not a matter of if it's deductible, it's how to make it deductible.
I look at IRS tax code just like I look at underwriting guidelines for mortgages. You can interpret them differently. And if you want to be more in favor of the IRS, you can take that interpretation. If you want to be more in favor of yourself, you can take that interpretation, as long as it makes sense to you. You can sell that interpretation. I feel like with the and I mean that's the way I go about it personally. I'm not going to recommend that to anybody, but I always say, I'll throw out some hints to certain things, but always ask your CPA what their feeling is. And Cindy's great though. I've developed that relationship with Cindy because of you guys. And I'm switching over to Cindy this year.
Good.
And that's
welcome to the family.
And I appreciate Cindy based on what I've seen produced by Cindy.
You'll love it.
And I should probably throw an asterisk out there. It wasn't with Cindy that I got into any IRS trouble.
No,
sure.
It was after I learned who she was and what she's about, and that's when my tax worries went away. And the amount of confidence and power that you get to walk into a room with, knowing that, or having that type of people in your cabinet, is, it's a very powerful thing.
All right, so can it be just as simple? And I want to, in a minute, talk about W-2 employees as well, but going back to our independent contractors and our 1099 employees or business owners, of saying, okay, I'm now getting to the end of the year, or I'm in Q1 and I'm getting ready to file my taxes, but I know that I want to transact in real estate in 2025, maybe buy my next home that I'm going to move my family into, or I want to buy my next investment property, and having that conversation with you saying, hey, I'm looking at in 2025 a $900,000 house. Justin, based on my credit, what do I need to make as far as income to be able to qualify for an $850,000, $900,000 house? And then when you have that number, then you can go back to your accountant and say, listen, here's all my write-offs, here's all the income that my company brought in, but I need to show X amount of dollars in income. Could it be that simple?
I mean, I guess it can be. But with
It's
me,
a loaded question.
it's a very loaded question. But with me, I would. This is the beauty of having the conversation with me is, I will say what you need to be at based on what current interest rates are and based on your previous year's tax return. I will tell you what you need to be at in order to qualify for that. That's not coaching at all. I'll tell you this. I think this is very important for a lot of people to hear is don't be afraid to tell the IRS about all your stuff. Especially, I see it all the time. People are renting homes to their family members. They don't put it on their Schedule E's. That hurts you. It keeps you from having rental history management history. They don't include their business cars on their tax returns. That's a big deal. I want to see that on there, and then I want 12 months bank statements so I can exclude the liability from you personally. I want to see. I want you to give the IRS your information and what you're using it for. I mean, obviously, you're not using your car all the time for businesses, but you're probably using it most of the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, wink, wink.
Yeah.
Things like that.
I took my 15-year-old out to lunch the other day, and we just talked real estate. I'm like, that's a write-off.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding, IRS. I'm just kidding.
If you're using your home for business, you need to put that on your tax return. And that's the problem with a lot of people doing their own taxes. They're not including that write-off. They're not including the amount that they're paying for their electric bill for their office portion of their house. They're not including the write-offs for things. Those are things that I can
and even if
back.
you're doing your own taxes, if you go to somebody who is not well versed in this, whether you're going to the guy at Walmart, which you got problems, but you're going to people who aren't as experienced. The thing that I love most about Cindy is she knows the questions to ask. It's like us when we do real estate, when people are wanting to build a real estate portfolio. I've seen agents who don't understand cap rates, performance, understand the investment realm, just go out and sell somebody a home because that agent is not equipped with the right questions. You got to ask, if you're going to make money in real estate and you're going to build wealth in real estate and you're going to work with the three of us, we're going to ask the right questions. The same thing comes down to your tax person. Do they have the arsenal of questions to ask?
And the mindset is going to be overwhelming. I mean, I remember when I first like I had a breakthrough year, like in year 2 or 3 when I first got into the business, and people would ask me, how much money do you make, Ryan? And I would, stick out my chest and, throw out a dollar sign. And now they ask me and I'm like, well, I lost $50,000 last year.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you think about it, like when there's someone who makes $1 million a year and they have tax exposure, let's just say 20%, right? Because they went over to H&R Block or, they did TurboTax or whatever, and they were able to get down to 20% exposure. And then you talk to somebody who's had an actual team like Cindy's team, and they bring it down to 10%, right? How much money did you make?
Yeah.
Right? Like who actually made more money? And a lot of people just don't think of it in terms of that. They want to, everyone wants to say, oh, well, I made $1 million. Did you though?
I tell you, the worst place to be cheap, if you own your own business,
I
the
agree.
worst place to be chintzy is with your accountant.
Mm-hmm.
And and I remember when I first hired Cindy, and I'm like, okay, this is the most amount of money I've ever spent for accounting services, and it was a tough pill to swallow. She's not cheap. I've learned why she's not cheap, because she's the very best. Then all of a sudden we filed our tax returns, and I'm used to paying, $35,000, cutting a check at the end of every year, $40,000 to the IRS, because my wife owns a business too, to now that dropping down to $5,000 or $6,000. The money that I've spent on her, I've made my
100%.
share of money by not owing.
4 or 5 times.
And so I think a lot of people out there think that, okay, well, I'm still going to a tax professional when I'm going to like an H&R Block, but they're just the volume. They're the Walmarts of the.
Well, I think Ryan hit the nail on the head. There's accountants, there's tax professionals, and then there are tax strategists
100%,
who are accountants, and that's what you really want.
And every single time, like even when I was using, well, I'm not even going to mention the name, but the previous accountant, and I'd go get approved for a loan, there was always all kinds of bullshit, hoops that I had to jump through, because they weren't taking advantage of all the opportunities that I had as far as taxes go. And then once I moved over to Cindy, it was just like, okay, I'm paying less. My exposure is diminished significantly, and it's easier for me to get through underwriting. Like
I know.
I mean, it took a lot of questions for me to finally figure that out. But
I remember one day Justin closed 2 loans for me on the same day. And I'm like, okay, last time around before Cindy and with the other lender, just to close one,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
like an act of God.
it's eye opening. Once you've experienced it, you're never going to go back.
Well, plus having the direct communication with the accountant is just so huge for us because, going back to you guys and asking you for specific documents, most people don't know the names of their documents that we're requesting. They're like, a 1065. What the hell is a 1065? Or, what's your 8825? And if I can just go straight to Cindy and ask for all this information and I'm getting it.
You have to speak the same language.
Yeah, we're speaking the same language. It's super fast and easy.
All right. Well, if you, at this point, if you want to get a hold of Cindy,
Yeah.
text the word Cindy to 623-AZ-RECON. That's Cindy to 623-AZ-RECON. But if you were looking at posturing and strategizing to transact in 2025 when it comes down to increasing your real estate portfolio, reach out to Justin, give him a chance to take a look at your stuff and put you on the right path. All you got to do is text the word tax to 623-AZ-RECON. That's tax to 623-AZ-RECON. All right, let's just for a minute, let's talk about our friends that are W-2 employees. Is there any strategies when preparing your taxes, or at the end of the day, here's my W-2? And
I don't even ask for taxes anymore with W-2 employees. So the only time I ask for taxes is if they own other real estate. So big deal if you are W-2, just make sure that you have your investment properties on your Schedule E, which is a schedule of your tax return, and claiming that rental income, claiming the expenses that you have as well, because that'll allow me to show management history, which allows me to have you buy a house and count income for that house. If you don't have management experience, I can't count income on a house. I can only eliminate a liability.
And I would say if you're watching this and you're reluctant because you're like, okay, I have a W-2 and it's straight, cut and dry. Something like that would be a little bit too overkill for me. Cindy, her company does have a bottom tier where that's all that they focus on is W-2 type of employees. So we do have options for those that are wanting to build, because they're even if you only have W-2s or your taxes are fairly simple and you're wanting to make life a little bit more complicated in order to invest in real estate and create other income revenues, the sister company is what I'll call it. They do a really good job of coaching their clients through the process so that they can posture themselves to start building. And then once you get to that point where you have multiple properties, multiple businesses, then that's when you probably take that leap.
Mm-hmm.
All right. If you want to have a conversation with Justin and getting prepared for 2025 and having a professional pair of eyes take a look at your taxes and help you strategize, just text the word tax to 623-AZ-RECON. That's tax to 623-AZ-RECON.